friendly faces and some that I don't know. Thank you for that introduction, Linda. And it was wonderful listening to the other talks to get an idea of lots of the different strategies, like Andy gave some great ones, and lots of different ways that we can help animals by playing to our strengths. So earlier this year, I was part of a global initiative, a global campaign called $1 Million Vegan. We started working on it last year, but it launched this year, and it was started by the founders of Veganuary. So it was based out of the UK, but we had 15 country managers, and I was the Australia campaign manager. And the premise behind the campaign was that we wanted Pope Francis to go vegan for Lent, or to eat vegan for Lent. And if he did, to save the planet, and if he did, then we would donate $1 million to a charity or charities of his choice. So it was an environmental campaign. The slogan was "Fight climate change with diet change," but obviously it was focusing on the vegan aspect, which gets lost a lot of the times in environmental discussions, the impact of animal agriculture. So it was a bold campaign, it was audacious, it was not without controversy, it got I'll talk a little bit about that. But one of the activities that we did was a truck stunt, and it was based on the animal clock. I don't know if you've heard about this, the animal kill clock. So this is a website that was started by an activist, and it covers the amount of animals killed for food in real time in the US, Canada, the UK, and they've recently added Australia earlier this year. So if you go to the website, and you'll see on a video that I've got, it actually has a live ticker, a live counter showing the animals dying in real time. So the numbers literally go up as we're standing here. And what we did was we hired a truck with LED advertising on the side, and this showed the amount of animals killed. This was on the 9th of February, I should say. So this was earlier this year, so only a few weeks into 2019. And as you can see, the numbers in Australia, just for those few weeks of 2019, the numbers of animals killed for food alone was already at 530 million. That does include fishes. Now, it's hard to measure fishes because they're not classed as individuals, they're measured by the tonne. So they're estimates, but they are based on industry figures and also figures from the United Nations. So this is me outside we're in North Sydney. We've got the backdrop of the Sydney Opera House and the Sydney Harbour Bridge. And basically the truck drove around North Sydney, and then it drove into the CBD with the numbers and the ticker going. People were looking at it. We had Try Vegan for Lent on the back, because we were encouraging other people to go vegan for Lent as well, not just the Pope. And we had a free vegan starter kit that they could download to do that. Now, this was a stunt that happened in 3 other cities. So as well as Sydney, it also took place in Toronto. Weather was very different in Toronto. I'm sorry for my poor colleague Megan, it was freezing there. In Los Angeles and also in London, my hometown. So obviously it took place in Sydney first because of the time difference. Now, once we got into the Sydney CBD, we parked up and I did some vox pops with members of the general public. And I asked them 4 questions. So I wanted to get their reaction to the kill clock, seeing it in real time and seeing those numbers. What did they think of it? I asked them, should the Pope go vegan for Lent? Would you go vegan for $1 million? And would you go vegan for Lent to save the planet and help animals? Now, I just wanted to play, this is a 1-minute short video, which will give you an idea of the people's reactions.
Behind you, you can see we've got the Australia animal kill clock, and that's showing in real time the numbers of animals that have already been killed in Australia to date. Just curious what your initial reaction is to that.
Well, I'm pretty appalled. I always have been. I think, I think man's ruining the world if we don't be very careful.
It's crazy.
I just think it's crazy how big the number is. Like, you never expect, say you just have chicken for dinner, you don't expect that big a number to come on the screen.
It actually raises a massive concern that a lot of animals are being killed for human consumption, and also it causes a disruption in the environment as well.
I think it's unbelievable. Like, you can't imagine that just for one place out there on the earth it's going up this quickly, and how many it is. It's horrible. Like, I think because people just literally go to the supermarket and pick it off a shelf, they don't realise what the impact they have on the planet.
see, people were really stunned by this, by the numbers, and there was something very visceral and emotive about seeing that ticker, that clock going up every second as they were standing there speaking to me. It really kind of freaked them out. Now, on the positive side, most of them did, obviously a lot of them, you can imagine, when I said to them, would you go vegan for $1 million? Of course they said yes. They also agreed that the Pope should go vegan for Lent, so they thought it was a good initiative. But also, they actually said that they would go vegan, they would try vegan for Lent. And I think that's interesting, putting a time limit on it. It's a bit like with Veganuary. People are more likely to sign up for something if they think they've only got to do it for a short amount of time. So it's okay, it's only for a month, or in this case it was for Lent. And the research actually, the statistics from Veganuary has found that actually a lot of people, quite a high percentage of them, will actually stick with it even after that time period is finished. But it's just kind of getting them into doing it, getting them used to it, demystifying what being vegan is, making them realise how easy it is to be vegan, that they don't have to give up their favourite foods, they just switch them out for plant-based options. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the challenges, which I think hopefully will be helpful for those of you, doing different types of activism. I should just mention as well, when I mentioned this campaign and that it was offering $1 million to the Pope, to a charity or charities of his choice, and we had 15 country managers. I need to mention as well, the whole campaign was funded by private philanthropists using their own personal money, and they do fund a lot of other animal advocacy and vegan initiatives. So some of the challenges, one of the challenges was the expense. To hire this truck, the costs were far higher in Sydney than in any of the other cities. I think it's about $3,000 for the day to hire the truck, and because it was about half that in the other cities, the equivalent. Because the organisation was based in the UK, there wasn't any GST, but obviously if you're in Australia, you need to add GST to that as well. Council permits, traffic management and some other restrictions. So, City of Sydney Council said that we hired a professional film crew because we wanted to get really good quality, high quality footage to put out to the media, to put on social media. So we had a professional film guy, he brought a sound person with him and his assistant that took photos. And I said to him, can't we just kind of, pull up the truck, hop out of the truck, quickly set the tripod up and take a few shots? And he was like, no, because apparently in the City of Sydney, there are cameras all around the CBD. He said, not only will you get fined, but you can also be charged under terrorism laws. And he said, I'm not prepared to do that. I'm like, okay, fine, I don't think I am either. So I had to go through the hoops with the City of Sydney. I had to fill out a whole form, I had to print out maps, and put the mark on the maps exactly where we wanted to get it, because we wanted to film the truck driving around the CBD. So, I literally had to come into the city and do like a recce, and then mark exactly where we wanted to put the tripod, all these different places around the CBD. To be fair, the guy at the City of Sydney was actually really helpful because that was actually his former job. He was working in location services for film crews. So he understood and he knew the film guy, which was really nice. So he was helpful, but it was a bit of a rigmarole to go through. You have to have a traffic management system if you want to park the truck up. So when we wanted to do the box pops, obviously we needed to park the truck, and we needed to make sure that we'd have a parking space, not only for the truck, which was I think it was a 10-ton truck, it was pretty big. We also needed parking space for the film crew for their van. So we had to hire a traffic management company. You can't just rent a few cones yourself and stick them down there. It has to be a certified person that does it. And also, apparently in Sydney, if you just leave cones there, apparently people will just move them and park anyway, which is very rude. I wouldn't do that, but apparently people do that in Sydney. So we actually had a person from a traffic management company. He got there about 8, 9 in the morning. He got the space that we wanted, which was on the corner of Pitt Street and Market Street. I would love to have had it on Market Street itself by Pitt Street Mall, but you can't. So I had it on the corner of Pitt Street and Market Street. So this guy was there and he stayed there the whole time. So this way, if anyone came along, you could tell them to buzz off. But obviously, and that was actually good. It was nice not to have to worry about will we get a parking space, but obviously there was a cost involved in that. Yeah, the other thing was the City of Sydney wanted to approve the artwork, and they wouldn't let us have the image of pigs. If you notice on the other cities, you'll have seen they had a backdrop of this image of pigs in London, Toronto and LA, but City of Sydney wouldn't approve that, so we actually could only do it with the black background. Now, there's pros and cons to that, because look, this is actually quite emotive if you look at that, because you've got the pigs there looking out at you. On the other hand, the figure, the number on the black screen did kind of pop a bit more, so there was kind of pros and cons to that, so we weren't too worried about that, but I just thought it was interesting that, you know, Sydney was the only place we weren't allowed to do that, whereas the other cities were. You're also in Sydney, you're not allowed on a moving vehicle, you're not allowed to have any moving images, so you're not allowed to have video or anything that moves. Now, because we had this live, whereas in the other cities you can, like in New York and LA, you can have videos and all sorts playing, but apparently for safety reasons you can't in Sydney. We actually had one truck company turn us down because this had a live ticker, it was a small movement. They said, oh no, we're not going to take the risk, whereas the company we did hire, they were like, yeah, it's fine, it's just a small movement. So that was just a couple of things to bear in mind. There was also a bit too much competition in the Sydney CBD. The film guy mentioned this to me. You know, this was on a Saturday. And I'm thinking back, really, I think it would have probably been better to do it on a weekday, but it was on a Saturday, and people were there to shop, and I think they were, you know, there's lots to compete for your attention, you know, all the shops have got their flashing signs and everything, so that was a little bit tricky to kind of get their attention. It was actually quite hard to get people to talk to me. You'll notice on that video, I don't know if any of you noticed, the majority of people there had English accents. There was an American woman I spoke to. There were mainly visitors to Sydney. It was really hard to get locals to stop. The film guy I worked with said that he thought it was because people are just getting a bit nervous nowadays of doing things like vox pops and being caught on camera in case they get pranked. So that was an interesting one. I had my partner Tracy there helping, you know, trying to get people on board. I had my friend Claire Mann, who many of you know, she was in the city, so she said she'd come and help. She was approaching people, I was approaching people, and honestly it was like pulling teeth, and it was a boiling hot day, my hair was going frizzy, and it was it was a bit frustrating, but you know, we got there in the end. But I noticed somebody on social media did say, you sure that's Sydney and not Manchester? Because quite a few people we got were from the UK. Also we wanted to get some photos and some video footage, and ideally we wanted crowds of people to, you know, be looking at the truck and pointing and taking photos on their phones and stuff. We actually had to stage this. So me, the film guy, and Tracy, we stood on the street, on the pavement, and as some people walked past, we both went, look, oh my God, look at that, what is it? And these two dudes, luckily, bless them, they turned around and got it. We had to do that a couple of times to get the photos. So in hindsight, I recommend if you're doing anything like this, rent a crowd. I should have put a post on social media and said, vegans and animal rights activists, please be at this point at 11:45 a.m. for a photo op. Got a whole load of vegans in, do the whole stunt, get your photo and your video footage, and of course what will happen is then the passers-by would come round to see what happens because there will be a crowd. So yeah, if you're doing anything like that in future, don't be afraid to stage it and rent a crowd. There was a lack of media interest in this stuff, which is a little bit disappointing, and interestingly, there was a lack of interest across the board in all the cities. The UK, Toronto, LA, none of the mainstream media were interested. In Australia, it was quite hard to get media coverage on the campaign itself anyway. I did manage to get it on the morning show, ABC, The Australian, Who magazine, New Daily, some others. But it was a bit of a struggle, whereas countries like Germany, Spain, France, Portugal, the media there were all over it. I guess it's because we don't have as big a population as those countries, and obviously not as big a Catholic population. But yeah, so that was something. But as we all know in activism, we don't just rely on other media. We become the media. We create our own media, which is again why we hired the film crew to do this professionally, so that we had our own assets which we can use and share on social. So some recommendations, so for animal liberation or independent animal activists looking to do actions. Obviously if you haven't got that kind of budget, $3 grand a day is pretty expensive. There is the potential, I think, to adapt the campaign with smaller TV screens. So similar to the cube that Andy talked about, you could have that where you have it with the footage, you could potentially have the animal kill clock. they're counting down in real time and engaging people in conversations. Obviously, you can take video and photos on your phone. You don't necessarily need to have the professional setup, and that includes the box pops. You have a tripod, for example, and pop your phone on. There is also the option of a stationary billboard, because if a billboard is not moving, you can have moving images of it. So that might be something to look at down the track, to actually have that kill clock counting down in real time at a central location. Obviously, there's a cost there, but potentially I think it's probably less expensive, because you can get a deal by doing it over a longer period of time, so that it's in that place. Just to give you some perspective, so you'll notice on the 9th of February the numbers of animals that have been killed for food so far in Australia, just a few weeks in, was 530 million. Today at 2 o'clock I took this screen grab. We're looking at almost getting up to 2 billion. Now, Linda said she put me on last because she wanted it to end on a high, so don't worry, we're not going to end on that one. I just wanted to just quickly wrap up with some of the achievements from the $1 Million Vegan campaign. We actually ended up getting over 800 pieces of media coverage around the campaign. Some of it was simply about the fact that the campaign had launched, but some of it, including from some very high profile and robust mainstream media outlets, did look into the issues, particularly around animal agriculture and the devastating impact that it has on the environment and on climate change, and really helped to get that conversation going. 27,000 downloads of the Vegan Starter Kit. To be honest, we were a little bit disappointed with those numbers, but I think one of the reasons that happened is that this campaign launched pretty much straight after January, which had a record 250,000 sign-ups. And so obviously, people had signed up for that and got their freebies. There are some other vegan starter kits out there. This is still available, so there's a free vegan starter kit available. I know Andy mentioned you've got the leaflet that you can give to people when you're speaking to them with where they can buy products. In the Australian version, there is an Australian version of the vegan starter kit on $1 Million Vegan. We've also got places where you can buy types of products you can buy and where to buy them. So that's still free and available for anyone who wants to download it, or send anybody there to download it. That's all good. And one final bit to end on, which I thought was really nice, that the campaign inspired some people who have decided to go on a pilgrimage. They're going to start, I think they kick off in July, they're starting from Argentina, and then between now and Lent next year, 2020, they're travelling through and they'll end up at the Vatican. So what they're actually hoping to do is convince the Pope to go vegan next Lent, because apparently it's a little bit rushed him to do it this time. I don't know, I think that's a bit of a cop-out. But at least it gives a bit more of a time to do it. They're going to be talking to children and to people along the way. Because the face of the $1 Million Vegan campaign was a young American activist called Genesis Butler. Some of you might have seen her TED Talk. She's the youngest person ever to have given a TED Talk, when I think she was 10, and she talks about veganism. She's absolutely lovely and passionate and wonderful. So these people he sent me an email and said, we don't want to let Genesis down, we don't want to disillusion her generation, so they're kind of taking up the mantle, if you like, to encourage the Pope to go vegan next Lent, and to encourage his followers to do that. So that's it. I hope that's given you a little bit of inspiration. As I say, I'm perfectly aware that this was a very well-funded campaign, funded by private philanthropists, and we haven't always got access to that in the animal community. But I hope it's given you a bit of an idea about how you can adapt it, and just how interesting it is when people are confronted, both, as Andy mentioned, with the images of animals, but also, literally, there were no images on that, but just with the actual numbers. And I hope that will give you some ideas of how you can use that. So thank you for listening. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them. Rita, hello.
Hey, I actually want to just make a point that, Katrina, I saw you speak back in 2014 when I was tipping over to go vegan, and you were part of my inspiration, actually. You were at an entrepreneur event.
I remember it was a Women in Entrepreneur event. I was talking about how to get media coverage, and I remember you came up to me and you said, I'm vegan. I was like, yes!
Yeah, that's the first time, most human, I guess, that I met that was vegan, because I know no vegan friends back then. So that was back in 2014, and then
Oh,
yeah, so
lovely. Thank you. I love hearing that. That's great. And you are today. This is what I mean. See, we never know. Like everything, like the stuff that you're doing, Andy, with the Q, going along to speaking, whatever our talents are. I think think there's no wrong way to do activism. It's not just about street activism, that's a really important part of it, but don't let anyone tell you that, what you're doing is not activism. Running a vegan business is a form of activism. I've said that in my book, and I'll say it now, and I stand by it. Signing a petition online, if that's what you can manage, having a conversation with your family and friends at work, taking in vegan cupcakes, whatever you can do that's in with your skills and that you can manage is great. So thank you so much for everything you've done, Rita, and for being here tonight. It's lovely.
My question is, how, really based on, probably not a quick answer, but how do you actually start a campaign? So I've seen things like Meatless May and Veganuary. If we wanted to start a campaign about ending the piggery that they're gonna build up, how do you actually start a campaign? As in a social media campaign? Is it just about creating a hashtag and getting heaps of people to do it? Is there something that's the key factors that you need? Because then I can see us doing something like that where we can get mass, voices out there through social media.
Yeah, so just President Rodney, I'll just briefly repeat the question. Rita's asking, how do you start a campaign? So how do you get a campaign going, particularly on social media? Do you start a hashtag? Honestly, the quick answer is you just start it. Veganuary, as I mentioned, had 250,000 sign-ups this year, but it started much smaller, and it literally started with two people, Matthew and Jane, in the UK, that thought, well, how about if we start this thing, we'll call it Veganuary, and there's all sorts that goes on in January. There's Veganuary, which apparently where you grow your body hair out, which I had no idea about. Dry January, there's all these things, meat-free Mondays, meat-free May, meat-free week, all of these just started somewhere. Having a hashtag is certainly useful, for sure, but I think it's literally kind of just getting out there, the piggery you mentioned. I know there's already a campaign that was mentioned earlier that Linda has started. Just put it out there. And this is the thing, sometimes people think, you have to maybe be a big organisation to do it. You don't. You can start a special day, January was a month, but you can start a national day. It was nobody necessarily, particularly high profile that said, right, 1st of October will be World Day for Farmed Animals. You can start a day, you can start an initiative, and you're going to start small, unless you've got, huge funds, you're going to start it small. For example, Ryan, who does Meat-Free May, he started out quite small. He actually did my online PR course and wrote a coaching program, and this year he was doing interviews left, right and centre. But, the previous year it was small, but then he's grown, he's got a little bit of funding, and then it just kind of grows and takes off. Obviously, it's nice if you can get a celebrity on board with it. That can be helpful. But yeah, just tap into influencers as well. Ask them, would you share this on your social media? And as well as creating your own hashtag, also look at what other hashtags are relevant so that you're getting the eyeballs on it. So you're not only, because when you use hashtags on social, you're not only getting people who already follow you on it, but you're getting people who follow those hashtags who will then hopefully follow you and then start to go from there. But ultimately, just start. You don't need a massive budget to start a campaign.
Katrina, thank you so much for such an inspiring, uplifting talk.